Okay, so get this right. Today we're going to twist our brains into pretzels.
Pretzels, huh?
Yeah, but in a good way. It's Zen Buddhism, but like the really mind-bending stuff. We're diving into how opposites, like, actually create everything.
I mean, everything, the whole universe, that feeling of me we all have, even enlightenment itself, it's wild. Get ready to rethink some stuff.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Right. So our Sherpas on this mountain climb of the mind are, well, we've got these Teishos, talks by this Zen master, Kyuzan Joshu Roshi, plus the classics. Gotta have them. Mumonkin, Hekigen Roku.
Yeah, these sources all agree nothing's just hanging out solo in the universe. It's all about how stuff interacts, like some kind of cosmic dance-off.
Okay, no wallflowers allowed. Got it. But, like, what is this dance? Paint me a picture, no interpretative dance metaphors.
All right. Imagine two forces. Basic, right? Like plus and minus, but they're always messing with each other. Could be expanding and contracting, life and death, even just breathing in, then out.
You're saying, like, two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
always got to have both, always affecting each other.
Exactly. Roshi, he uses this analogy, two hands clapping. Can't get the sound, the self, without both, right? And even hands change from doing it.
That's a good one. Okay, but where's me in all this? How do plus and minus make a me?
Here's where it gets juicy. So picture those forces merging, kinda, but not all the way. Leaves a space, an imperfect zero. That's where the I am feeling comes from, that you're a separate something.
We're all just walking around incomplete.
Well, kind of,
Yeah.
and it's that incompleteness that makes us grow. Think about it. Even a baby, totally helpless, right? Still shaped by this dance from day one.
Hold on, how's that work? Break it down.
Okay, so baby's all about what Zen calls tariki, basically, relying on others. Can't eat, can't walk, needs mom and dad, big time. That is the imperfect zero being supported by those plus and minus forces we call parents, right?
So no parents, no me. But also, like, in a weird way, no me, no parents?
Exactly. You becoming you, that's what completes the whole parent thing for them, too. It's a package deal.
Wow, okay, deep thoughts for early morning. So we grow up, this just gets more complicated.
Oh, yeah, big time. Teenage years, hello. Suddenly that imperfect zero, it's like, hey, I'm kind of big deal now. Wants freedom, pushes back against the plus and minus that's always been there.
Makes sense. Those door slams are basically philosophy in action.
Right. It's all part of the dance, man. But here's where it gets cool. Roshi says, true growing up isn't saying screw you to all that. It's realizing father is myself, mother is myself.
Whoa, hold up. Not literally becoming our parents, right?
Right.
But more like we contain that push and pull inside us.
Bingo. The love, the discipline, even the stuff that drives us nuts about them, it's all plus and minus that we internalize.
So how do we not just repeat it all? How do we become more than just, like, puppets of this cosmic tug of war?
That's the heart of Zen, and it's trippy. It's realizing we ain't just puppets. We can learn the dance moves ourselves.
Okay, you know I love a good metaphor. How do we start directing this thing?
Well, one way is meditation. Roshi says it's like making a space of stillness in the middle of all that pulling, like hitting pause on the tug of war so you can actually see what's going on.
So instead of getting yanked around, we learn to watch those forces without getting totally swept away.
Exactly. And once things are quiet, then we choose stuff, not just react on autopilot. And from that stillness, we see which choices make things better, both inside and out in the world.
Okay, makes sense. So meditation's like boot camp for becoming a better cosmic dancer.
Sure, why not? But hold on, because it gets wilder. Roshi says there's a whole other level beyond the tug of war, a state he calls zero beyond zero.
Zero beyond zero. All right, you're speaking my language now, but don't leave me hanging. What does that even mean?
So imagine plus and minus don't just meet, they fully become one thing. Not static, though, more like a dance where it's always perfect harmony. He actually says it's like true love.
Okay, true love equals zero beyond zero. Now we're getting into some serious mountaintop wisdom, but like, is there a trail map for this? How do we even begin to make sense of that?
Right, it sounds kind of out there, but bear with me. Remember how we were talking about that tension, that push and pull of plus and minus? That's the engine of, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, like constantly being pulled in different directions. Exhausting, honestly.
Exactly. But zero beyond zero, it's not about making the tension disappear. It's more like those forces finally in perfect sync. Roshi's talking about existing where those opposites aren't fighting anymore. They're like fueling each other in this crazy creative dance.
Okay, starting to get the vibe. But is this really love? Like we usually think. Hearts and flowers and all that.
See, that's Zen for you. Always flipping the script. Yeah, he used the word love, but Roshi's thinking bigger. Way bigger than just romance. It's like how you are in the world, how you treat everything and everyone with this total Openness, kindness, accepting it all.
Whoa, okay. So we're talking about like a whole different level of consciousness,
Yeah.
not limited by ego or fear or wanting stuff all the time.
You got it. And it's not about being like some Spock-like robot either. It's the opposite. Roshi says zero beyond zero is pure energy, pure creation, but you got to come from that wholeness. Then you can give back to the world. You can become that plus and minus for other people.
That's beautiful, but also kind of intimidating. How are we supposed to achieve that? Did Roshi leave a Post-it note or something?
Oh man, I wish. That's what's so cool and so frustrating about Zen. There's no rule book. It's about experiencing this truth that's bigger than our usual thinking.
So to even get a taste of that, I'd got to sit on a mountain for 1,000 years.
Wouldn't that be nice? But no, Roshi's all about being in the world, remember? All the mess, all the contradictions, that's where it's at.
So how do you teach people then?
He used all sorts of stuff, stories, metaphors. He was big on koans, too.
Oh man, those Zen riddles. More like brain melters if you ask me. I never got them.
Right, but that's kind of the point. Koans are meant to short-circuit your logic, make you access something deeper.
Okay, so like brain puzzles that unlock secret wisdom, that kind of thing.
You got it. One of the famous ones, Roshi talks about it a lot in these Teishos, is the one with the dog.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of it. It's like, does a dog have Buddha nature? And the master's just like, moo. What is that even supposed to mean?
Right, $1,000,000 question.
Yeah.
And Roshi wants us wrestling with that. See, it's not yes or no. It's not even an answer like we usually think of them.
So he's saying, like, the question's pointless.
Kind of. Saying moo blows the whole thing up. It's pointing to something beyond how we usually think, beyond yes and no, beyond dog and Buddha.
Yeah.
It is that zero beyond zero where all that stuff doesn't matter anymore.
All right, my brain's officially hurting. In a good way, I think. So this moo thing, it's like a cheat code for enlightenment.
Huh? Wouldn't call it a cheat code. There's no shortcuts in Zen. But it's definitely powerful for breaking free from that either-or thinking that keeps us stuck in the tug of war.
This is all blowing my mind. But seriously, if everything's part of this dance, where do I fit in? Am I just being flung around, or can I actually, like, learn some moves?
No, that's the question, right? And Roshi would say, that's the one we got to be asking. He's not just laying down some theory here. He's saying, become part of the dance, consciously.
Okay, so how do we do that? Go from puppet to, like, puppet master.
That's where the actual doing comes in. Zen practice, with all the meditation, being mindful, questioning yourself. It's building up that awareness, that ability to see through the me story we tell ourselves and see what's really there.
Sounds like a lifetime's worth of work, but like a really interesting trip.
That's the spirit. Roshi reminds us, even a little step in the right direction, that's a win. Don't beat yourself up if you don't instantly become enlightened, right? Just keep practicing, keep asking, and stay open to that zero beyond zero.
Okay, that's good to hear. Still a little overwhelmed by all this, though, you know. Anyway, to, like, sum it up, something I can actually wrap my head around and use in my life.
That's a great question, and I think Roshi would dig that. He was all about making this stuff real, you know? If I had to pick one thing to remember, it'd be this. Everything's...
That's really beautiful, something to think about. But there's this one thing I'm still kind of fuzzy on. We talked about the imperfect zero, where self comes from. Roshi says it's embraced by plus and minus. What's that actually mean, though?
That's a good question. It gets to the heart of how we grow up within this whole plus and minus thing. Remember that imperfect zero, that feeling of I am, it's born incomplete. It needs support, needs help to become something.
So this embracing, it's like how our parents take care of us when we're little.
Yeah, exactly. Roshi's pointing out the importance of Tariki, basically, relying on others. A baby, totally helpless, right? Can't even survive without mom and dad. Those plus and minuses forces taking care of it.
So it's not just like being fed and stuff. It's the emotional stuff too, right? Feeling loved and all that.
Totally. And as we get older, that embracing changes. Could be a teacher, a partner, your friends. But it's the same idea. We need that connection, that help from outside ourselves to deal with life and become who we are.
So then what happens when we're older, more independent? Do we graduate from needing that?
Not at all. That's where things get really interesting and challenging. Roshi says that as we grow up, we got to learn to embrace ourselves, become our own source of that Tariki. Doesn't mean becoming a hermit or anything.
Not about going full lone wolf?
No. It's about finding that strength and kindness inside yourself, feeling complete so you can give back to the world the way it gave to you. Like you become that plus and minus for others, just like your parents were.
Starting to see how it all fits together now. We need that support to grow. And then we learn to give it back, keep the whole thing going.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. But we got to shift our perspective to really get it, see past the surface into how these forces are working. Roshi calls this shift overcoming mistaken consciousness.
Mistaken consciousness. Okay, you're messing with me now, right?
I promise I'm not. It's just one of those Zen things that sounds way more complicated than it actually is.
Okay, then break it down for me. What is mistaken consciousness, and how's it connected to all this plus and minuses stuff?
Basically, it's being stuck in illusions, those stories we tell ourselves about who we are and how the world works. It's like seeing life through a blurry lens, you know?
Yeah, like when you're feeling totally lost and there's no way out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the biggest illusions, Roshi says, is being totally fixated on me, on the ego. We get so caught up in what we want, what we're scared of, we miss the bigger picture, forget that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Oh yeah, been there. But how does that connect to the plus and minus?
Well, Roshi says, clinging to this idea of me all the time, it stops us from really getting in on the dance. We don't see how everything's connected, always changing.
So it's like trying to dance with your feet glued to the floor. You can't really move if you're holding yourself back.
That's it. Mistaken consciousness makes us stiff, scared of change. We can't go with the flow of the universe.
Makes sense. So how do we break free from that? Start seeing things more clearly?
You know what's coming. That's where Zen practice comes in. Meditation, paying attention, kokians. It's all about breaking down those limiting beliefs and being open to a new way of seeing.
So challenging what we think we know. The stuff that seems so obvious but might actually be holding us back.
Exactly. Roshi's all about questioning everything, looking deeper, being ready to let go of what we think we know. Real growth happens when we get out of our comfort zone and embrace the unknown.
That's scary and exciting. But gotta ask, if this plus and minus is so basic, so universal, why is it so hard to get? Why do we need all this practice and weird riddles to understand something that's supposed to be natural?
Good question. I think part of it is it goes against how we're used to thinking, you know? We're taught to see things as separate, cause and effect. But Zen, it's like seeing the world in 3D suddenly. You got to rewire your brain to get it, see how everything's layered and connected. And that takes time, effort, being willing to let go of those old thought patterns.
Like trying to watch one of those 3D movies with the wrong glasses on. Gotta upgrade to really get it.
Exactly. And that's where the fun begins, because once you start seeing through that plus and minus lens, once you get that interconnectedness, it changes everything.
All right, so we're back, and my brain's still kind of buzzing from all this plus and minus stuff. It's like seeing the Matrix or something.
Yeah, it definitely shifts your perspective. But the thing is, Roshi doesn't want us to just think about this abstractly, you know? He wants us to see this dance playing out in our everyday lives.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we tune into this cosmic rave in a way that doesn't make my brain melt?
Well, remember that tug of war we keep talking about? Roshi says that same dynamic is happening in all those little choices we make every single day.
I mean, like what to have for breakfast, waffles or eggs?
Exactly. Or even bigger stuff. Should I take that new job, even if it means moving? Should I speak up about something I believe in, even if it ruffles new feathers? Those choices, Roshi would say, they often reflect that plus and minus dance happening inside us.
So every decision is like a mini tug of war, and I'm trying to find the balance point.
Exactly. And there's no right answer, no cheat code. It's about learning to listen to what each force is telling you, you know, and then making a choice that feels right, that lines up with what you really care about.
Okay, easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like I'm being pulled in a million directions at once. How am I supposed to find any kind of clarity in that mess?
Well, that's where those Zen practices come in. Like meditation, that can be really helpful for finding some stillness. It's like pressing pause on the tug of war so you can actually see what's going on.
So instead of getting yanked around, I can step back and watch those forces without getting totally swept away.
Exactly. You create that space between what's happening and how you react. You can actually choose what to do instead of just running on autopilot. And from that stillness, you start to see which choices lead to more harmony inside and out.
Makes sense. But what about those times when you have to make a decision? You know, you can't just meditate forever. How do you choose which force to follow when you're under pressure?
See, Roshi wouldn't say it's about choosing one over the other. It's about realizing that you need both plus and minus to grow. Trying to shut one of them down, it's like trying to clap with one hand. It just doesn't work.
So it's about learning to dance with both of them, finding a way to make those opposite energies work together.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really cool. Because when you embrace that, when you stop seeing them as enemies and start seeing them as partners in this dance, that's when you unlock this whole other level of creativity, wisdom, compassion, all that good stuff.
This is making so much more sense now. It's like
Yeah.
I'm learning a new language, one that helps me understand what the universe is trying to tell me.
I love that analogy. And Roshi would be right there with you, encouraging you to keep exploring that language. Keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions. The more you dig into the mysteries of this dance, the more you realize how much potential you have.
Well, I am definitely feeling inspired to keep going on this journey. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else from these Teishos that you think people should remember as they're navigating their own plus and minus dance?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. You're not alone. We're all connected, all part of this big, messy, beautiful dance of plus and minus. And when we cultivate awareness, compassion, and that willingness to embrace the paradox, we can create a more harmonious and fulfilling world for everyone.
That's beautiful. And the perfect note to end on, I think. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep dancing. Who knows what amazing discoveries await on the other side of that zero beyond zero.
Right on. And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Zen. We'll catch you next time for another mind-expanding adventure.